That's right, Himiko Reverse Gyze. Say what? But for real, just like within a Gyze deck, we want to make sure that we ultimate stride with Gyze, so that way the following turn we can deal 5 damage thanks to 5 zeros on the field. Do keep in mind that Neon Gyze also replaces the power gain from triggers into binding a Zeroth, which Gyze decks typically have a harder time with aggressive decks in the early game. There are ways that the deck can mitigate it, such as grade 3 heals, some draw power from the triggers, but also in this case, we're using Himiko, and in Genesis, we have the power of stacking cards and activating triggers. So we're able to build enough hand to stay alive, but also use cards such as like Anavarata and Azucena to be able to survive long enough to seal the deal. We also play cards that are supplemental to help with stacking our drive checks and our damage checks. And then of course, with Himiko Reverse's defensive skill, we can force activate a draw trigger during the opponent's turn as well. So let's get right into it. Check out Dueling Guard's deck boxes, playmats, and binders. The great quality products that are anime based. They continually have more anime options becoming available. Use the affiliated link in the description for a 5% discount on your next purchase. I also want to give a massive shout out to Robbie Call and his friends for making the premium Facebook group, but also the premium Discord. If you're into the premium format, I highly recommend checking that out and joining the server. It's where I stumbled upon this Himiko Reverse Gyze list. And at first I thought it was just regular Himiko Reverse in premium, but then I saw the player with the username Asha actually explained to me that it was a Gyze deck, and also took the time to really help me how to pilot this deck in the way that him and his friends really built this. So I want to give a massive shout out to also Asha and also his team, Team Astro Fox. So massive shout out. Thank you, amigos. And again, I want to make it abundantly clear, this is not my original list. It is their work. And I've just been having a lot of fun with it too, especially right after playing full power Crest Harry months ago. It was a nice change of pace. This is more control based, and so you're going for that alternate win condition. Starting with the grade 3s, our grade 3 boss is Himiko Reverse. And so it's really for the defensive aspect where we can activate a draw trigger during the opponent's turn while still being able to access your strides. You could also fall back to the regular Himiko and proc that effect as well if you feel that's much more beneficial too. But 9 times out of 10, you're going to ride into Himiko Reverse. And I know a couple of months ago, you guys were wondering, why am I picking these high rarity ones? This is the reason for it. And speaking of high rarity, we are playing 3 copies of regular Himiko. And so again, you could fall back into this. If you're going second, your opponent more than likely will be grade 3. So you could activate her skill 3 times on the draw trigger. So you'll be able to draw 3 cards and bind 3 Zeroths at once too. Keep in mind that you have to have the draw trigger in your soul, but also Soul Blast 5. And so you have to make sure you have those resources to be able to do that as well. Having this 4-3 ratio is really helpful because you need a copy of your Vanguard to ultimate stride too. So I would not reduce any of this, otherwise you'll start having problems ultimate striding to begin with. We're playing 1 copy of Caliburn. Caliburn helps us with CB in case we do need it. There are cards such as like Veritrum, your Vanguard, and then of course Himiko Reverse's skill take up CB, and also you don't want to take too much damage early on, especially if you're not getting any power gain. So we can use this to countercharge, but also if we don't need the countercharge, we can at least draw 2 more cards, potentially they get into more combo pieces, but also survival pieces too. It's also worth noting that you can still play a normal order while you're on Gyze too. So while you're at Gyze being 30k base, you can use this to get more cards to be able to survive, so you can get to that turn to deal the 5 damage too. We're also playing the grade 3 heals, 4 copies. This is needed for survival for the early game. Again, you can't get the power gain from triggers, but you can get it from the grade 3 heal effect. So you can give your Vanguard plus 10k while you're grade 1, while you're grade 2, and that way your opponent doesn't just call bodies that barely just hit and be able to do 2 to 3 attacks starting at turn 1 and turn 2. This helps solve that problem. Not to mention that it's a heal trigger, so worst case scenario later on, you'll be able to G-Guard into phenomenal G-Guards that Genesis does have too. And also as a pro tip, this is a grade 3, so you could technically ride this immediately. The turn that you want to ultimate strike, but you don't have a copy of Himiko, you can ride this and then pitch another copy of the grade 3 heal and be able to ultimate stride that way too. So think about that too, especially if you want to preserve grade 3 heals in your hand. So it's not just defensively, but also making ultimate stride more consistent. Now into the grade 2s, we're playing 4 Gleipnir. Gleipnir is super helpful because you're able to get any card from Soul and add it to your hand. There is also Deer Rune, but Deer Rune is specifically to the clan self. So if you're trying to get orders, you're trying to get your blitz orders, you're trying to get your combo pieces, a lot of it will be in your soul anyway, so you can manage that. Plus you have G-Guards that are able to soul charge from your drop into it, so it's not the end of the world. This is also a great card going second because you're getting a +1 to potentially bulk up essentially, so it's really there for the consistency boost. We're also playing 4 copies of Prometheus, so on place, whether it be Vanguard or Rearguard Circle, you can check the top 2 cards, put 1 into soul, and leave 1 on the top of your deck. So this helps set up your drive checks, your damage checks for potential triggers. And then also, if you really need to, you can shove a draw trigger into your soul if you need it for Himiko or Himiko Reverse. There's also synergy with this card when you have the purple OT, and so when you're resolving the purple OT and you call this mid drive check, you can actually do the skill to further stack your remaining drive checks and be able to capitalize on that literally mid drive check. It's pretty hilarious, actually. For the last of the grade 2s, we're playing 3 Veritrum. The original list did have 4 of them, but after playtesting a bit and also trying some new grade 1s, which I'll go over soon, is that I reduced this to 3. Veritrum doesn't always come up, but when it does, you time it pretty well. You generally know that Counterblast 1 and Soul Blast 3 is pretty hefty, and so you want to preserve that CB, especially for Azucena, for your Himiko Reverse, etc., or even your strides like Amaruta. Only use Veritrum when you need to, and not every case Veritrum handles everything, essentially. The one thing that I will say is that it can handle against Bracing Angel Ladder because it'll actually call the rearguard onto a rearguard circle, and due to overloaded circles, the other rearguard just dies because of that mechanic, not necessarily because of your effect. And again, check out 50 Card Shop and other affiliates to support the channel and get your cards at a discount too as well. So with Fertitta, this is a new card that the original list did not have. In fact, the original list had 4 copies of Arctic. It's really the grade 2 version of Prometheus, essentially. Be able to capitalize that. It's also 10k shield, but so is Fertitta. So this is something that I'm trying out where if I can call this early on and start kind of like force stacking every single turn moving forward, it's kind of like a snowball effect. So the earlier you see Fertitta, the better. What I noticed too is that if you call this card, it's going to be a booster. It's not necessarily going to attack. You really don't want to give your opponent too much damage. You want to keep them at 1 or 2, so you don't care about if this is being rested, as long as it helps you with your draw triggers coming in your draft checks or your damage checks, essentially. You can play with the ratios too, so if you want to go for Arctic instead and take out Fertitta, that's totally up to you. And of course, they're slightly different too in that respect too, so give or take, especially if you're into a metagame, whether it be at your locals or regionals where there's removal. So Fertitta may not be able to survive that long enough, so you may be better off with Arctic, at least with the on play. We're doing 2 copies of Apple Witch Cider, so this is great because it helps defensively. For every 3 cards, it gets plus 5k shield. You're able to shove any card from your hand into your soul. That's actually very important. If you're missing any draw triggers, that's one way to shove one. If you have any excess grade 3s or any other shieldless cards, you can maximize on that quality for shield. And then as a rearguard, you can help soul charge if you need to, and especially if it bounces back. This is one way to get potentially draw triggers or combo pieces into your soul in the early game, but also keep in mind that your Vanguard column has to attack at that point. So if they leave a rearguard, that's a prime opportunity not only for you to get drive checks, but also use this as a booster and bounce back and so on. In order to survive even longer, there are 2 copies of Hanali. So we wanted to hard limit high multi-attack decks still, especially that still rely on the cross, for example. This helps a lot. 5 attacks, 6 attacks is a lot more manageable than 9 attacks, etc. And 4 copies of Azucena. Man, this card is phenomenal. You're not decking out. One of the losses that this deck had with the ban list is that we lost Dreaming Dragon and even also Reverence Rush Dragon that also stacked heals. So this is still helping without decking out in that case too, because we don't have Dreaming Dragon. The fact that you can return up to 4 cards is really good. And you can resolve more than one of these in a single game. It can do from soul or drop, so you have some wiggle room there too. More importantly, this card works while you're on Gyze. And it's also very ideal because you can use the CB skill that's optional to give your Gyze plus 5k permanently. Again, Gyze is unaffected the effects of cards except for Guardians. So Azucena is technically a Guardian when it's using its skill. So you can give your Gyze 5k and all of a sudden instead of 30k, now it's 35k. It's already hard enough for certain clans to deal with that, but this helps seal the deal even more so. You could also G-Guard with this card too, so you don't necessarily have to use its skill. This gives you access to Anabarata if you feel like this is the best fit for that game state, essentially. Preserving your grade 3 heals, so if you do need to, you can ride those in Ultimate Stride, worst case scenario too. Also, a quick tip with this card is what I like to do is to, if there's any copies already in the drop zone or in the soul, I like to return those copies because eventually, once your deck gets low enough, you'll bound to see them. 1 copy of Sanctitude, still good, still needed in this metagame too. It's a 1-card PG, especially with a deck that cannot get power from the triggers at all. And of course, as your starter Gyze, so it'll bind itself, but later on you'll be able to Ultimate Stride and remove everything from the field and your G-Zone, and this will be sitting as your Vanguard later on. In terms of the triggers, we have the purple OT. Again, this is able to call cards like Prometheus, Arctic to have that mid drive check manipulation. This is just healing damage too. So again, you need to survive. So if you're able to heal back a damage, that's highly appreciated. And again, thanks to this deck with cards like Vanguard too and other stacking abilities, you're able to see your OT pretty often, compared to other decks. You don't soul charge as heavy too compared to other Genesis decks. I know in my build prior, I would take out the OT and just stick with Ultima because I soul charge the OT anyway. This deck is not like that. So I appreciate it, especially with this OT. And since we're playing Sanctum 2, we are playing 3 PG draws. Again, we want to capitalize on draw. And more draws is the overdress draws. These actually get shield, so they're 10k guards essentially style. And then also to have more options, we have the regalia heals. Again, you don't get the power gain, so it doesn't matter if they're 5k triggers, 10k triggers, it doesn't matter. What you care about is the effect. So you may want to soul charge, which can also soul charge a draw trigger into your soul for Himiko, or potentially a combo piece that you can grab with Gleipnir. Onto the G zone, and probably one of the most expensive part of the things, if you do not have these cards, it's the 5 pieces of Vanguard Exodia. You got Drachma, you have Stark, you have Dust, and that is the box topper. We have Zoa, and then we also have Megiddo. So over the course of the years, I've actually have picked up zero off dragons just because of the decks that I do play. It just so happened that since I picked up Harry, it was time for me to pick up Dust. I do have Ultima, but again, if you want to use the OT, you cannot use Ultima in the same deck. There's a choice restriction, so that's why we don't use Ultima. Then we have also Harmonix Messiah. What's actually pretty important is because we're on Neon Gyze, we technically don't draw a card from the starter. We don't actually get the 5k ticket shield from the starter, but you can reveal Harmonix when you're going second to get the Guardian ticket at least. So that's actually pretty fruitful. The rest of the G zone is Genesis generics. We got Double Armorota. This is typically your first stride if you don't use any of the Himiko abilities. Once you're able to write up, essentially, this will essentially draw you 2 cards and soul charge 5 cards. That sets you up pretty good. More than likely, you'll soul charge a draw into it, or at least draw methods to get the draw into your soul at that point too. And technically, you can give something 10k and a crit, but you don't have to. And then again, you're trying to keep your opponent at 1 to 2 damage at most, so that way you can seal the deal with Gyze essentially. 2 copies of Vanguard. So this helps, especially once you get to your like second stride. If you really need to stack your triggers so you can guarantee the 5 0-offs at that point, Vanguard is a phenomenal option. It has that reach for 4 cards, and then you can bottom deck if they're not triggers at all, so it helps that reach to potentially 8 cards deep, depending if you count triggers or not that are draws to count in deeper and all that kind of stuff. But essentially your goal is to get the remaining draws to go off so you can have 5 0-offs. Do keep in mind this has to attack Vanguard, so you are giving your opponent a damage. Then we have Marduk, just in case. I haven't had to use Marduk, so thankfully that hasn't come up, but it is a thing, just in case. We also have 3 copies of Anavarata. This comes up actually. Again, you're trying to survive, so you want to reduce crit on certain things, and you're able to shove certain pieces from your field and or hand into your soul. Then the 1 copy of Iris, again, key pieces into that, and same thing with Ear, but just better shield and a 4th card potentially at that point. And that's the deck profile. I hope you enjoyed it. This is a very interesting deck. It's a more control-based style deck, so you definitely need to take it a different approach too. If you guys have questions in the comments, feel free to comment down, ask questions. Happy to answer any questions too. Even Asha can chime in the comments too. For me, I've been having a blast with this deck because 1, it's Genesis. It's also revisiting Himiko to a degree, and it was a nice change of pace compared to like the aggressive wombo combo types of decks that I typically play. So it was a nice change of pace. If you want to check out more deck profiles, check out these videos next as well. Till next time, amigos.